Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Chris and it is that time of month again for Just Our Imagination Challenge, where we will get into that more later. And thank you guys so much for popping in. So let's begin. DIY number 1. Okay, I'm going to start with this 14-inch wood round. I picked these up in a pack from Amazon. I will be sure to link that in my description box in case you're interested. I also grabbed some of this wallpaper from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to first start out by finding center on my wood round just for a reference point. And then I am going to grab my iron gate from Heirloom Traditions. This is an all-in-one paint. And I'm also going to be grabbing some painter's tape. And I'm going to place that painter's tape down the center, but to the side of my little dot that I made. That way it's just a little over center and my center line will actually be in the center. And when you're putting on that painter's tape, just make sure you flap it over the sides, because you're definitely going to want to make sure you paint the sides. And I am just going to paint 1/2 of this wood round with my paint. And once I've got that all dried down, and I do use a heat gun, I'm just going to go ahead and pull off that painter's tape before it's completely dry. Then I'll finish drying it down. My next step is to grab some more painter's tape. And what I want to do is I want to put a really thin line right next to the black. So I'm going to go ahead and place how thick I want that line from the black first, tear that off, and then go ahead and put another piece covering the black. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my antique gold. This is from Paint Couture. I believe in my last video I called it from Chalk Couture. I don't know, I always get the two confused. But I do usually have a link in my description box to the primer I use from Paint Couture, so you could always find this there as well. And when you open these, you want to make sure you give them a nice good stir. And then I am just going to paint on my gold line, and I do end up using about 3 to 4 coats. And I will go ahead and pull that painter's tape off once again before it has a chance to completely dry. And once I've got that gold line dried, I'm going to go ahead and take my little piece of wallpaper here, and I want to line it up where that gold line is just showing it enough. That way that blends in a little bit better. And then I'm just going to go around the wood round in the paper and just make a little indentation to where I want to go ahead and cut out. And then I'm just going to make sure it looks good, and it does. And I'm going to go ahead and use my little pick tool here, my little Cricut picking tool, and I'm just going to get that paper started so I can peel it off quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and apply a layer of some decoupage down, because I don't know how well that adhesive on that wallpaper is going to adhere by itself on this wood. So I will put a layer. You want to work pretty quick. You don't want that decoupage to dry down. And once we've got that decoupage on, we can go ahead and peel off our wallpaper and place it down. And then I'm just going to use a little scraper tool to get that wallpaper down with all of the air bubbles out. And when you're doing this, it is going to push some of that glue out towards the edges. So when we're finished with that and flip it around, I'm just going to grab a baby wipe and wipe off any of the excess. And after that glue's had a chance to dry, I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and I'm going to trim the excess paper away. And once I've got that trimmed away, I wanted to get it a little bit of a cleaner cut, so I did go ahead and grab my finger sander and went around the edges. And when you're doing this, make sure you go in a kind of downward into the side motion. And the only downside to doing this on this type of paper is it is going to leave a little white streak. So I was only going to do a couple of sections, but because of that little white streak it leaves, I had to go to make sure I did the whole edge so it all looked cohesive. And then I made a stencil with my Cricut machine, and I am going to place that on the side where we painted and right in the center of that. And then I'm going to take my black paint and I'm going to stencil over my letters. And doing this little method here has really made those lines come out a lot crisper. So I have a lot less bleeding. And once I get that covered and got that dried down, I'm going to go over it with my antique gold. And I only did about 1 coat of this antique gold. I wish I would have done 2 coats because it would have been a little bit more vibrant, but it's okay. It still looked pretty in the end. And once I've got all that removed, I did go ahead and spray it down with a clear matte sealer. And then I found these little push pins at the Dollar Tree. I went down an aisle that I hardly ever go down because it's the plus section. And towards the end there, they had these sitting there and they're still $1.25. So I am going to go ahead and I'm just going to use my little plier cutters and I am going to remove the little tacks. And when you do that, it leaves just enough of the stem that you can still hammer down into the board. That way they don't go all the way through and they stick in there very nicely. So I'm just going to go ahead and hammer those in a manner that I think it looks pretty. And when you're hammering that down, grab a towel or something and place over those tacks. That way you don't scratch them up. And before I go any further on the front side, I'm just going to take some jute rope and just make me a little simple hanger. And by doing this, I just put knots at the end of the jute rope and use some hot glue, secure those down. And then in the end, I did end up going ahead and putting some masking tape over top of it with some hot glue just to make sure it was extra secure. All right. Once that's on there, I am going to go ahead and grab my scrunchie. Yes, look at this pretty scrunchie I found at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to go ahead and use it as some ribbon for my wood round. And I'm going to go ahead and scrunch down the top piece, the little band piece. I'm going to scrunch it down. That way it looks like little bows. And I'm just going to go ahead and use some hot glue to secure that in place. And then I've got this greenery that I had picked up from the Dollar Tree. I believe it was 2 years ago. I believe I saw some there last year, so they could definitely come out with those again in the spring. But I'm just going to go ahead and figure out my placement. And then I'm just going to go ahead and use some hot glue, and I'm going to glue down my greenery. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off any of the excess poking up. And I'll use some more hot glue to make sure that greenery is secure in place. And I'm showing you this. I don't use it here, but I do end up putting it in at the end because I just thought it looked better. And I'm going to secure that little scrunchie down with some hot glue, and this project is done. And I am going to have my finale for all 3 projects at the end. But this is the Just Our Imagination Challenge hosted by Rustic and Lace DIY and Kathy Jo DIYs. And this month's co-host is Craft Classy. I will have their links listed in my description box. I will also have the playlist linked in my description box. And I hope you guys will go and watch all these lovely creators, see what they come up with, because we do put a lot of time and thought process into this challenge, which I absolutely love this challenge. It is so fun. And if you guys are coming in from the playlist, I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button, become part of my DIY family where I love to create just about anything from home updating projects to budget-friendly DIY decor. You just never know what I'm going to have in store. And for all of my existing subscribers, thank you so much once again from the bottom of my heart for watching me week in and week out. Love you guys. Now let's continue. DIY number 2. I found this unfinished ceramic pot at Walmart in the craft section. I went ahead and gave it a couple of coats of my Iron Gate paint. And then I'm just going to grab some styrofoam. I am going to place that pot on it upside down just to give me an idea of where to cut. And I'm going to use my chopper I get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to trim it up so it will fit in that pot. I also trim roughly about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch off of the top so that is not too far up. And now I have got these succulents that I have been collecting over the years from the Dollar Tree. I just pick them up when I see some that I like. But I am first going to take some reindeer moss. I thought the green would look better than the other moss that I normally use that I can't think of the name right now, but you guys, I hope know what I'm talking about. But I'm just going to hot glue that in the top, and I'm going to just figure out how I want my succulents to go in there, and I'm just going to push them down as far down as I can get them. And I am now going to grab one of my humongous paper clips. I found these at Walmart, 99 cents for the pack. So I was like, hey, I know what I can do with these because I had the planter in my cart at the time. And so I am going to first start by straightening it out, and I do use my pliers to help me straighten it out. This is a little thicker than the flexible wire that I use, so it was a little bit more of a struggle bus to get that stuff to bend. But I'm going to first go ahead and remove this plastic coating that they have on top of the paper clip, and I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife just to slice through that, and then that way it just tears off. And once I've got that all removed, I am going to grab my pliers and I'm going to start bending this wire. And I apologize, this is not the best angle I have. I didn't realize I was getting out of the camera's view when I was doing this. I have a new camera my husband bought me for Christmas, and it's been going pretty good so far, but the items that I have to have closer to my body for a little more strength tends to get out of frame. But you're just pretty much going to go down about 1/3 of the way and start twisting it up. And you want to make sure you have 2 loops there. And I tried to get mine to kind of look like a heart when I did this, but you're just going to twist that, like I said, just around. And this is a lot easier to do with some of that bendable, flexible wire that I will link in my description box. But yeah, that wasn't one of the challenge items. So this paper clip had to do. Now, when you twist that last piece around, you're going to want it to twist on the back side. I was struggling a bit. This was the second one that I did. The first one I did easy peasy, and this one I was like, well, geez, it's not working out the same. But I figured out the little twisty part was actually on the back side. I do use my hammer to kind of flatten it down a little bit. And I'm just still trying to twist it. And this is what it's going to look like when we're finished twisting it. And then I'm just going to pop that in my planner. I'm going to take some of that wallpaper from the first project. I'm going to adhere it to some cardstock. And then I'm just going to stick it in there. And if she wants to take this out, she can put a photo in there. DIY number 3. And for our final project, I've got this 15 by 12 by 10 cardboard box that I have picked up from Walmart. And my husband got me this nifty tool for Christmas, and it's got like a rotary blade on it. It is cordless, and it cut through this box so much easier than any box knife ever could. I am just going to go ahead and cut this cardboard box down into 4 pieces, and then I'm just going to choose the 2 that will work for my project. And I did find an image offline of a cactus, and I want to trace that out onto each piece of this box, but I want it larger. So I thought, okay, well, I want it larger. So to help myself, what I'm going to do is pretty much just mark how tall I want my cactus to be and how wide I want it to be roughly. I do end up playing around with this. I erase a few times just until I get it to how I want it, because I am not an artist, you guys. You know, I kind of use something for a guide all the time, but I seem to get a little better the more that I do draw. And once I got that image all drawn on there, I am just going to cut that image out, and to do that, I ended up using an X-Acto knife. All right, now that those are all cut out, it is time to get a little messy. I have got some joint compound here. Now, if I were to do this all over again, I would actually go ahead and use spackle. I think the spackle would have done a little bit better job, but hey, it is what it is. So what I'm going to do is spread that joint compound all over my cardboard cutouts. And you definitely want to make sure that you get along the edges. And I think that's where the joint compound kind of failed versus what I think spackle would have done. The spackle's a little thicker, and I think it would have just bonded around those edges better. So when I spread this on here, I'm using a plastic butter knife, and I like the little grooves that rigid area on the knife was putting in. So I decided I was going to do that all throughout these cacti. So here's where I'm trying to smooth that along the edge, and it wasn't cooperating. I was getting more on the back than anything, but hey, live and learn. And I am going to do this process to both of my pieces, and I'm going to let them sit and dry, and I let them dry overnight. And I probably should have let them dry maybe just a little bit longer. I don't know. This stuff was really flaky. I'd never had that problem with the spackle, so that's another reason I think the spackle would have done a little bit better. Okay, so once they dried overnight, like anything that's paper, as that moisture set into the cardboard, it kind of caused the cardboard to fold up a little bit. So I wanted that to be straighter. So I thought taking some of these large popsicle sticks down the center would do the job. So I just hot glued all down the center. And then I took some smaller little popsicle or craft sticks, whatever you want to call them, along the arms of the cactus and placed those on there with some hot glue. And that did the trick. That helped shape those flatter. I did also, since I had some of that joint compound on the back, I went ahead and just sanded that off just to give me a smoother surface, because I am going to go ahead and cover this with some paper just to make it look more finished. I am giving these projects to my daughter, who likes that boho look. And after I made these and looked at them, I thought, hey, I kind of like boho too. Maybe I should keep them. But I gave them to her and she really liked them. All right, so the next thing, I'm going to take some chalk paint in the color white, and I am just going to go ahead and cover over the joint compound. And I'm hoping doing that will prevent that compound from flaking off like it tends to want to do. And then the next step is going to be to take some antiquing wax and a chippy brush. And I'm just going to brush this on. And the reason I'm using the chippy brush is so it kind of breaks up that wax a bit, giving it more of a wood finish look. And between the two cacti, I applied the wax two different ways, and one of them definitely came out, in my opinion, better than the other one. But once I got finished putting the wax on the first one, I moved along to a baby wipe so I could apply the wax along the edges of that one. And this just made it easier to get in all the awkward areas along the edge. And since I already had that baby wipe out, I decided to go ahead and go over the cactus itself with it because I thought it looked a little splotchy. So I just kind of rubbed the wipe over top. And I think that's kind of where I went wrong on this one. It just made it too dark and it took away a lot of the faux grain. So since I had that baby wipe in my hand, on the second one, I decided I would just start along the edges, and I went around that one just like I did the first one with the baby wipe and the antiquing wax, getting along the edges. And then I thought, well, I've got this baby wipe on hand, so I'm just going to go over this cactus with the baby wipe. So that's what I did. I wiped it on and wiped it in. And as I'm wiping it on, I will wipe off a lot of the excess. I don't want it on there too heavy. And then I'm just going to go ahead and grab my chippy brush and put another layer of the wax on top of the layer we just put on. And then I'm going to take an even stiffer chippy brush and I am going to brush over that wet wax, removing a lot of it as I can. I hope that makes sense. It's hard to explain. You see right here, I'm going to go ahead and take that stiff and I'm going to wipe it off, cleaning my brush as I go. And then I got smart and grabbed a paper towel and thought, okay, let me brush this off, clean my brush, and just keep doing that all throughout. And it gives that really nice grainy wood appearance. And then the other one, I went over it again with wax. I don't know what I was thinking with that one. It must have been something about the appearance that I just did not like. And so I thought, okay, well, this came out too dark. So let me go ahead and try and put some white paint on this and then do the same technique I did with the second one, but it didn't work. So the second one we did definitely looks better in my opinion. And then I'm just going to take a glue stick and some of the brown packaging paper you can pick up from the Dollar Tree, and I am just going to finish off the back. And then I thought these cacti needed something, so I have these stencils, and I don't even remember where I picked these up from, probably off of Amazon, and I've got the color Nautical by Folk Art Matte, and I'm just going to stencil along the side of each of the cacti. And this is what really decided for me that lighter color cactus was the prettiest, because that blue stood out a lot better than it did or does in the dark one. And once I've got that done, I'm just gonna go ahead and put a simple jute twine hanger on the back with some hot glue, and this project will be finished. And coming up is the finale, where I will show you all 3 pieces together. And don't forget to go and check out the playlist, show these creators some love, and thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video, and let me know in the comments down below which of these 3 were your favorite, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.